Welcome, everyone, to our New Year Grace. I am Reverend Elvia, and so honored to be sharing space with these lovely souls and welcoming in the new year with all of you. So, you guys want to just say hello?
Good morning and Happy New Year. It's Reverend Barbara here in Canada near Toronto. It's lovely to be here.
Guelph. I love Guelph. I love that word. It feels like a Hobbit word or something. Guelph.
It's actually Italian, which
Oh,
there's a whole
cool.
story to it, but I won't go into it at this point.
Very cool. Thank you.
Happy New Year from Reverend Marianne here in Swampscott, Massachusetts, which is on the east coast of Massachusetts.
Happy New Year from Reverend Peter, here from our tiny hamlet, Norfolk, Massachusetts.
Another hobbit to go.
And Hamlet it is. So before Peter leads us in an opening blessing, just wanted to share, we're talking about the reality of reality here today, which was our theme for the month of December. And all kinds of, not worth going into the details, but scheduling glitches and things happened that it didn't work out for two of our events, that they just kept getting rescheduled, and we were finally raising the white flag like, okay, angels. And so what I think the stage I want to set for everyone is that the angels worked really hard to make this a New Year's grace. And this is not it for January. We have a theme for January that we will be announcing in another event later this month. But just know that there's so much emphasis on whatever happens here today and this theme as we kick off 2023. So with that, Peter, would you like to lead us in an opening blessing?
I sure would, and join us in February for the reality of the reality of the reality. No, just kidding. Start us off with some levity. Laughing is great medicine.
It is.
So as you are able, just get comfy, get relaxed. Close your eyes if you wish. And as you breathe in and out the air, breathe in and out the energy. Just as the sun shines brightly at times and then seems dimmer, so does the energy around us. So just feel that energy almost throbbing in and out, for we are always giving and we are always receiving. And at times, the reality of that may not seem so. But the reality of the reality is, it is so. We are always energetically giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. And so take a deep breath of that air in and let it out. And as you are able, come back to this time and this space and this reality.
Blessed be. That was beautiful. It was really interesting to notice how balanced the giving and receiving were. And I was like, is it really supposed to be that balanced? Like that's like the overgiver, overserver, over which I know so many of us are, the people pleasers. And yet it's meant to be balanced. So that was a beautiful way to start that off. Thank you. So the reality of realities. Barb, what comes to mind for you when you ponder this topic? It's a rich one. I have to say, this was like when it first came up, I was so, Marianne and I were coming up with themes, and I was just so juicy.
Yeah, I've been kind of like, oh, I don't know about the reality of reality. And yet, of course, it's that vision that we have that we see. And at the same time, sort of taking a deep breath and looking at things from different perspectives, from different eyes, because it is so easy to step into something and think that you have some sense of what's really going on. And yet we're in such a creative place at this time things are constantly changing. And so how do we trust that reality is evolving, and that by intending and holding a place of love, a place of highest potential, that reality will evolve gently into something even more loving, and that the future is uplifting and potential is profound, even with the idea at times that it looks really kind of bleak. So it's kind of like trusting when we look deeper into something. It's like me looking out my window here, and there is, years ago when I moved here, I realized that there was some branches that kind of circled around in the tree. And I looked at it and I thought, it looks like a romper room mirror. and I looked through it and I said, so what's really here? And so I think it's staying in that, I wonder what's really here. I wonder what this potential is. And by holding sort of a miraculous, uplifted point of view, that there can be something like a romper room mirror with a really magical possibility. Wonder what's really here.
The magic mirror.
The magic mirror.
Wasn't that what it was called?
Yep.
With unlimited potential for who's
For anyone under 55, you probably have no idea what we're talking about.
Who's there looking through the mirror, and they'd be able to see the people in the audience through the television set, and they'd Miss Flora, or whatever her name was would say, I see Jeremy out there, and it was always so magical. So that's that kind of, it's so funny that just came forward, but it's like, look through the mirror of magic and the mirror of wonderment and see what's really there.
I love that. That's a great visual.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That was quite a while ago looking at that, and it's still there.
That's cool. Very cool.
Definitely.
Thoughts on that, or what are you thinking over there, Marianne?
Well, actually, when Barb came up with Romper Room, I immediately went back to my childhood and Miss Jean. And with a name like Marianne, she very often did not see me. And I was always very disappointed. But I think part of the message that came through for me with that Romper Room image and not hearing my name is sometimes you have to create your own reality. You can't wait for somebody to create it for you. So Miss Jean saw me, whether she saw Marianne or whether she saw Barbara or whether she saw Elvia or Nina, and you probably had the same thing, or Nina. But the reality is she saw us all because we all lived in her heart. And in her paycheck,
for those who don't know, because I think that probably some context don't know the show, that she would hold up this mirror and say, I see Barb, I see Peter, I see, right? She would name off these kids' names. And so your point being, right, that if you don't have a typical, more common name, not typical, more common name, she's not going to see you.
Or at least not publicly acknowledging you.
The reality.
Reality. Right. But I love your message around that, though, because, it's so true. We are creating so much of our own reality.
Yep. We're more of the creator than we realize when it comes to our own lives.
Mhm.
And one of the things that makes me think of is, so just in that moment, as Barb started talking about that mirror, it created, for those of us that, especially those of us that experienced that and saw that show, it created two realities. In this reality, you've got, the reality of all of us in this room at the age that we're at, yet in our minds, we went to this reality of when we were watching that show at that childhood. So there's basically a multiplication, I guess, of realities in that example, but a lot of times in any conversation, you get these multiple realities created.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I think it's interesting because as you say that, Peter, it's like how many people are living stuck in the past on something that they may or may not be aware of, and how much energy is actually still in that event of the past or that memory of the past or whatever. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. Sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes it can be, kind of a chain, sort of holding you back, tethering you. But, because so the energy gets fractured, right? I mean, you're more the shaman speak guy, but when you say it's fragmented.
Well, I think it could work either way. It's fragmented or it's amplified. It may be in this reality, it's fragmented a bit, but in a way, this example, maybe it's amplifying your sort of childhood energy or some of the energies that you had as a kid in thinking about that. So that's, really it's time travel. And I'd say probably we most often time travel backward because there's something concrete there that we can tie into for foundation or amplify, as opposed to the future. Is typically not as concrete. We can kind of imagine, but you don't have that I hesitate to say it, physical reality to tie into, because it hasn't been written yet, or at least that's our perception, that it hasn't been written yet.
So you could say that one reality of reality is that we have access to this whole spectrum of time and space.
Absolutely. And then if you open up the Akashic records, then
here we go.
Ancestry, then that reality of realities gets much deeper.
Yeah. And I think the whole idea of quantum physics too, and the idea of what we are capable of creating, and if we just keep going to the past, we can just be creating over and over again reality. That's kind of, I guess, what you're saying, Peter, that
the patterns.
Yeah, the patterns, just repeating the same patterns. Whereas if we're aware that we're creating and putting it out there for the highest potential, then we can be connecting and being part of the divine and creating something. It's almost unimaginable. It's wonderment again. It's like looking through the magic mirror without expectation on some levels.
Yeah.
But for the best, for the potential of the highest good, I guess. Yeah,
well,
I showed you.
I'm sorry, Bob. Go ahead, finish.
Well, I was just saying that I'd shown you guys this card, which is a Rumi card, and it's. I was saying it's normally kind of a sensuous card, the description in the book, but seems like where we're going now. This recognition, this constellation, this swirling up above here, and then this huge, beautiful flowing energy of this woman, that when we're aware and connected to the divine, that we are working with the divine, that we are part of that divine. And I think the more that we hold that vision, that recognition that things are changing so dramatically and are potentially so uplifting as far as what our future holds, even as we're kind of looking at but knowing that we are so divinely connected and that there's so much wisdom that's coming forward. And I think that's one of the the values of science at this time, that they are recognizing at last this connection between science and spirituality, and bringing forward so much that's enriching and powerful, and it's huge potential for the earth, for the changes that we've made that that we need to be doing a lot of cleaning up. But there's so much potential coming forward with love and light and technology, and how do we hold that beautiful vision, knowing that we're a part of it all.
Yeah.
The reality
The
reality
reality.
of reality.
Yeah. I mean, when I was thinking about this for what I wanted to share, I was thinking the reality of reality is that we really don't know. It's like, it's why we have mystery schools, right? It's why we understand that when we're really dedicated to the spiritual path, we recognize that there's so much we don't know, and that we're not meant to know, and we can try as hard as we can, and we can make up all kinds of narratives, but that doesn't mean that it's so. What I believe is that a reality of reality is that we are all, each of us individually and collectively, are way more powerful, to your point, than we realize we are. We just have to believe in that power to be able to access it. And I think that's where the work comes in, with the believing part, and obviously keeping the faith. But I think there's a difference between, believe is a verb, and there's work required in order to be able to do that and hold the space and let go of the outcome. I mean, we talked about that a lot, right, in our world, but that's a hard thing to do, believing in a certain outcome and having faith, and then just letting go, giving it to God.
That is the hard part.
It is the hard part,
I think when we realize, though, that we're connected, so co-creating, sometimes I think, why did I create this? Like, why did God what? And it's like somebody said,
what the heck?
Yeah, really. And someone said to me, oh, don't blame but God. I said, I never blame God for anything, like never. It's like, so yeah, I sometimes go, I'm not real happy with what's happening, that's for sure. But I'm also like, it's not God's fault.
Right.
And sometimes, like what happened to me this week, the reality of reality, you think you're heading in one direction, and in an instant, you have to switch paths and switch schedules and just change everything. And it can be, as it was this week, for a positive thing, or it could be for something that's not quite as positive. But the whole intention is, the reality of reality is, you have to be prepared to pivot on a dime and to trust that it is all good, bringing us back to our tenet.
And making space for 35 boxes.
It actually was only 25. And what we're referencing, because I know a lot of people who are watching this are also very familiar with my daughter's journey and my journey with her dialysis. And this week, back in November, she finally, after a year, was able to have the peritoneal dialysis catheter surgery. So the catheter was placed, and we have been waiting for it to heal and going for training. And we went on Wednesday for training, expecting that we were going to be released to home peritoneal dialysis after the holidays. And surprise, we started that night on a part-time basis. She had her last, and I know we're recording this a little bit in advance of New Year's, but she had her last hemodialysis treatment this morning. And starting Monday, she is transitioned completely to peritoneal dialysis. So with the intention that It's much more gentle on her body. It's a little bit more labor intensive for her and I, but much more gentle on her body, which will tax her heart a whole lot less. So
Oh, wonderful.
we
Really
were
something to
spending,
celebrate.
thank you. We were spending last holidays thinking she was so sick that and frail that we didn't expect another holiday season, and here we are. So God is good. But set your expectations realistically and be prepared to shift.
I love how it's overlapping too with the winter solstice, you know, a time of rebirth. It just, it feels extra powerful.
Yeah.
Not that it wouldn't be extra powerful. It happened in October, but you know, it just feels like there's added divine emphasis on this experience for you guys.
Well, it also, everything happens when it's supposed to. This surgery was supposed to happen last November, and because of an infection that she had, it got postponed, and then she had to have some oral surgery. So that took longer. Once that was done and we were on the calendar with the surgeon, she kept getting bumped from the OR schedule. And so the surgery, she was bumped 4 times. So it was the 5th try in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality of that reality, which I know you have this perspective, is that it happened when it was meant to happen. Right. You know, as opposed to attaching to those initial dates and timeline and all that.
Yeah. And while it was disappointing because you ready yourself for something major like surgery.
Yeah.
And, looking back on it, it's like, aha, that's why. And so we attached ourselves to the ultimate outcome, but we stopped attaching ourselves to when it was going to happen. And here we are.
So what do you think?
What about you, Peter?
Yeah, I was just thinking, still waters run deep, my mother used to say.
I know. I'm looking at him. He's very quiet there, and I'm thinking, pondering.
So I'm thinking about some events would have been 42 years ago, or even before that. But as I talked about before, my lovely wife, Elvia, back then was Nina, and she stalked me, and over the course of a couple of years, we dated a couple of times, but at that time, my reality was that I didn't have deep feelings for her, and kind of pushed her away because I didn't want to lead her on. And then in 1982, I suddenly awoken to those feelings, and my reality in that moment when I was awoken was that I was in love with her. And also my reality shifted that if I expressed that to her, that would be the reality for life. I could not express that to her and not be ready to follow through to live with her the rest of my life. And so after a couple of months, I finally told her.
It wasn't even that long, but...
No, I had feelings for a couple of months, and then I told you.
Oh, I don't think I realized it was that long.
And then it was about a month before she really responded to that. So all along the way,
someone else.
I understand that. I'm talking about this in terms of my reality. Like I went through this change in reality where I didn't see her being in my life other than as friend, to spending my entire life with her. But in this month in between, after I told her, not knowing if that reality was ever going to be. But I just knew in my reality at the time I told her that I had to tell her. That was my reality, that I could not just keep this inside, because that really wasn't part of that reality. So it kind of, I think, fits with the conversation about timing. It was just like in that one instance, I knew it took me a couple of months to, I guess, get up the courage or be fully sure. But then when I told her, for me, I knew the timing was right, that it had to come out then.
The reality of reality is that everything is fluid. And I do love that story. So thank you. He proposed on August, no, we started dating for the third time on August 3rd, 1982. And he knew that we were going to get married on August 3rd, 1985. So there was a lot of sort of overlap. But yeah, and you're making me think like the whole fluidity, like even gender identity right now, like who I know 40 years ago or less never would have thought that gender would be something that would change. Like, so I feel like you're saying the reality of reality is that everything's up for opportunity to evolve, and yeah.
I just got this little hit in my head, and it kind of goes back to that ad, the more you know.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens is as we gain more information and as we gain more clarity around something, we gain more acceptance, and things can then just flow the way they're really meant to flow. And, back then, it wasn't something that anybody thought about, it wasn't part of anybody's reality, really.
Right.
Or at least not their reality that they could share comfortably.
Right. The language.
I'll just say that, just elaborate on the more you know, the less you know is the phrase, right? Just in case anyone doesn't know that.
Well, I think she's thinking of the NBC thing, right? Which you may not have, Barb. There's a commercial. They give a little tip and they say the more you know. So what is this? This is part of a phrase, it sounds like. The more you know, the less you know.
Yeah, the more you know, the less you know, because it just keeps going, whoa, oh wow, and then I didn't know that. Whoa! Sort of the explosive expansion of when you have a little bit of information, then a lot more comes in, and it just changes your perspective and creates different paradigms. So.
And that reminds me of another thought I had before we did this was the whole, I think there've been different studies, but there was one that was kind of famous where something happened in an intersection and the police interviewed all the witnesses and everybody had a different story of what happened. And so kind of what you're saying, Barb, is that, you start with one story from a witness and you have a reality that you create in your mind. Okay, this is what happened. But then you talk to the second person and it's like, wait a minute, that's not what happened at all. And maybe it's completely different, or maybe it's just now there's another piece added. And then the third witness and so on, you keep adding pieces and the reality keeps shifting into something different than you originally thought.
So isn't the reality that we can, I'm looking at your hats and I'm thinking, hang your hat on, because you could be like several different people when I look at those hats behind you, between the cheetah print and the cowboy hat and something else going on there. But isn't sort of the core reality that we can hang our hats on just that we are all divine beings, that we are all love?
Yep.
We are, and I think that example, for me, just points out how we're all co-creators, because it takes all of our perspectives to create the whole.
That reminds me of the emissary wheel that we built right after seminary, Barb. And we had, because when we were in seminary, I feel like I'm getting a little catty here, but they used strings and things to measure out where it has 12 points on the wheel. It's like a mandala, and they measured it all out. And I'm like, why are you guys doing that? Why are you just using your guidance? So you, Barb, and Rev Rick and somebody else were there. But I remember we built an emissary wheel in our field, and it was completely by guidance. And the rule was that all of us doing it had to feel a yes for the stone to be in the right place. And it was perfect. And we just followed guidance and allowed that to be the authority, which that feels like kind of putting that in highlight for 2023, the need to do that. We always say that, but I have been getting the message for a while now. I think it's going to be a pretty fast-paced year, a lot of change, and we always go back to following guidance, but I think it's going to be extra important.
When you think about all the tools that we have to support us in this, when Peter was speaking, I was thinking raison d'etre for human design, that we are all bringing in our gifts and in putting them together, we can create something beautiful and loving.
Yeah.
As you said, the emissary wheel, using our intuition and guidance.
Yeah. And remembering the power of energy work. We've just had a situation within our family where, Peter, I think, was dusting off his skills at doing some long distance healing, and, which is always so powerful. And yet it's just not part of our mainstream narrative so much. And I think we're being called to bring it back, whether it's Reiki or prayer or whatever, just the importance of that as a form of medicine.
Yeah, and I was with friends last week, and we did energy work, and I was standing and holding someone's feet, and I went, I'm doing this. And I think it is something, another one of those wonderful things that that we've received guidance on, and that it makes me happy. So whatever makes us happy, I think it's very important to stay in that light.
Yeah, and elevates the body, mind, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when we're doing that, we're helping to shape the future reality.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Beautiful.
Yeah. So, anything else you guys are feeling like you want to share on this specific topic before we kind of move on? All right. So as we begin to wind down here with this grace event, New Year's grace event, and think about 2023, and I do want to mention, just because Barb, you had talked about tools, that is going to be our theme later this month for our we're calling it Moon Grace event later this month, just talking about different tools that we can access when we're thinking about intentions for this year, it doesn't even have to be for the year, but when we're thinking about intentions and how we can leverage all that we have with our gifts available to us. So stay tuned for that. And now let's see what Marianne has come up with a card for us for this year.
Well, I was guided to choose the Rose Oracle, which was a card deck I bought actually because I thought the colors were beautiful with subtleness, but I love the box.
Did you know consciously Divine Order of the Sacred Rose? Did you put that together?
Oh, I didn't even put that together until just now. Thank you for that. So one more reason why I was drawn to it. I love it. The card I picked from this it's so perfect. It's called The Bloom. Creations realized, right time, harvest, celebrate. And how perfect is that for what we're talking about, the reality of reality? And my thoughts along the lines of that, be prepared to shift. It's also about creating, and it's about blooming. And Barb, it goes back to that card you showed us where she was like this and just opening up. So open yourself up to what is to come in the new year. And it just feels, the card is soft and subtle, as all of them are in this deck, but it's also about abundance and beauty but softness. So that's the message I get.
That is so perfect. And you're making me think about, just because it's going to be a swift, fast-paced, lots of change kind of year, it's all for the benefit of us blooming. And it makes me think of those little flowers that come up in spring, like daffodils. Like one day they're like this big, and the next day they're like this big, and they're just so beautiful. I love it. Thank you for that.
Thank you, card deck, and thank you, angels, for helping me choose it.
So, Reverend Peter, what tenet do we have for today?
And the winner is?
It's like picking a lottery ball, ping pong ball. Oh my God.
I trust it's all good.
Whoa, that's a perfect one. Of course.
Wow.
They're my favorites.
I'm kind of speechless.
That really is moving, perfect, and stepping into the
Very much.
lusciousness of new beginnings.
Very much so. So, Barb, you had something you wanted to share and read for us all, and then we'll wrap up with the tenets.
Yes, I will see. Try and shorten this a little bit, but it's always interesting how things arrive as you need them. And one of the cards I picked this morning was perfect for me, and then this arrived, and it's Matlakata, and we've been through a lot over the last year, a full spectrum reorganization, including the loss of many familiar reference points. It's like wearing away of the axis around which we've been orienting personally, culturally, and collectively. But a new phase is beginning to appear, a new stage in the alchemical opus, which is what alchemists call their work. That's a stage of rebirth, renewal, and rejuvenation, a new dispensation of the water of life. You can almost hear it if you're really quiet. The flow of water out of the natural world, and also within the neural and soul pathways of our very being. There's some mysterious connection between inner and outer, between matter and spirit, that begins to reveal itself as we walk this path. This, of course, was one of the great revelations of the alchemists, the exploration of the mystery and magic of this union. Somehow, despite all the challenges we've had to face, there's a new context now. We're being given the opportunity to reimagine, revision, and clarify what it is that's most important to us, most sacred, and how we want to use our time here. There's some new realization of how fragile and tenuous it is here, and also so precious. While there's something disorienting about this realization, there's also a sense of possibility and potential to approach our lives in a more inspired and heartfelt way, not only for our own benefit, but for all of life, for nature, for the earth, and for the ancestors, as well as the ones yet to come. In these times of transition, it's important to slow down, to connect with the earth, to gather and hold the broken pieces near, and to grieve those losses. While there is something disorienting about this realization, there is also a sense of possibility and potential to approach our lives in a more inspired and heartfelt way, not only for our own benefit, but for all of life, for nature, for the earth, and for the ancestors, as well as the ones yet to come. In these times of transition, do slow down and be still. Imagine all of the potential and the magic that is being created from your loving heart, and trust that we are all moving forward together into a place of new beginnings and never-ending love.
beautiful.
And so it is.
And so it is. And who was that written by?
Not Lakita.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So are we ready to do the tenets? Everyone feeling complete? So Marianne, if
Feeling,
you'd like. Sorry, Peter.
I'm just feeling complete in this reality.
You're so real.
Amen to that. So you've got that to share, Marianne?
I do.
I'm just going to invite people to, all of you, to just allow these words that we're going to share with you to go with wherever within you that they are needed most. I think it's really profound that I trust it's all good has come forward for all of us. I also invite you to pay attention to the ones that feel like they're emphasized for you. Perhaps that is something that is medicine that can help you as you navigate 2023. I open my heart with deep gratitude and intend today to master my spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical energies.
I am dedicated to my spiritual practice. I surrender to my soul's purpose through sacred prayer. I own my guidance.
I live in partnership with my angels. I serve with a loving heart. I am compassionate in every moment.
I trust it's all good. I allow immediate forgiveness. I honor my truth.
I listen to the spiritual messages within my physical body. I express myself creatively. I love all beings with an open heart and an open mind. I am one with Mother Earth, and so it is.
Beautiful. So, Reverend Peter, do you want to just give us a moment, take us through a moment as we officially close this beautiful event?
Sure. So as you wish, close your eyes, just get comfortable, and again, just feel the energy and feel our connected realities. For it is through our connected realities that we create the reality of the reality. So as we go forward in this year, keep this connection in your heart to all the other connections around you, in your space, in your town, in your country, across the globe, and across the universe. You are always loved. Blessed be.
Blessed be. It was beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So honored to have you here, and much love and many blessings. See you again soon. Bye.